No, I played sports and I didn't get the ladies. So like, don't lie.
That's because you were a swimmer, Austin. Okay, cool. Thanks for joining me, guys. Welcome to the first episode of Bro Talk, I think is what we're calling this. Super excited about this. Thank you, everybody, for giving me your time to go through this conversation. And this series, hopefully, is going to help out a lot of young men and give them some good practical wisdom that they can apply to their life through this process of growing up. And so if you're watching this, then you probably already know kind of what the show is about, but just a brief little overview of what we're going to be doing. We four guys are all friends from Arkansas, and our goal with this show is to help young men through the process of growing up through their teenage years. For all of us, those years are vitally important in building your character, your integrity, your identity. Who we are today is based mostly on the experiences we had in our teenage years. And so this first conversation in episode 1, we're going to talk about what makes a man, what makes a godly man, the attributes of a man, the characteristics of a man, and also know that none of us are experts. We're all still really young. We're all, barely 20, 21, and we're on this journey of becoming better men every day as well. And so we, by no means know everything, but I think what makes us also able to do this is that we were just where most of the people watching this are right now. We were just in those teenage years. And so we know what it's like. We've been there, we've done that, so we can give sound advice to this. So I want to start this off with this idea. I heard this quote, and I love it so much. I always think about this when I think about what it is to be a man. It goes like this: good men create good times create bad men. Bad men create bad times, and bad times create good men. And if you think about that throughout all of world history, that's a cycle that just kind of repeats itself, right? And the question that I want to present to you guys, and we can talk about this, and then for anybody listening, is at any time throughout the world, kind of all those things are happening simultaneously. Good men are creating good times, while bad men are also creating bad times. So the question is, which one are you going to be? Are you going to be, when you grow up, and this process of growing up, are you going to choose to be the good man that creates good times, not only for the world, but for ultimately for your family, your community, your church, and for yourself, right? Are you going to be creating good times around you, or are you going to be creating bad times by making poor decisions and not being the man that God is calling you to be? So throwing that out on the floor, if anybody wants to jump in with for you guys, what does it look like for y'all to be a man that is creating good times for other people?
A good, there's a difference obviously between being a man and being a good man, because, well, frankly, to be honest, we've heard it said before that even boys have a penis. So there's a lot of 40-year-old men, just because you have a penis doesn't mean that you're a man. And, obviously, there's a difference between boyhood and manhood. And I think that another word that can go along with the good and the bad men is strong and weak men. I think those are two things that can be put next, good and bad, and they're synonyms. And so it's really a matter of what's the definition of a good man, of a strong man or of a weak man. What's the definition of those two? And then how can we create that both in ourselves and also in the younger guys that are coming up under us? So,
yeah. And I think, real quick, just my definition of a man, or even a good man, that's something that's always kind of evolving and changing, not in its fundamental principles of it, but just certain words that I would use, courageous, leadership. I'm always thinking of other attributes to add into it. And so I don't really have a solid definition of what makes a good or godly man for me, because it always kind of changes here and there. So anyway, somebody else wants to go.
I think one of the things for me would be responsibility. I think when you start to take responsibility for your actions, and like not just receiving consequences, because like when you're a kid you do something wrong and you get in trouble, that's the consequences. But when you actually take responsibility and like the weight of your actions, you carry that with you from day to day, I think that's kind of when you're starting to become a man. Like when you realize the power of your words, that's just one step closer into being a man, and just more and more, the more responsibility you take for each of your actions.
So basically, I think one of the main things that makes a man a good man is integrity. And that's like, what are you doing when no one is around and no one's there to see what you're doing and make sure that you're doing the right thing? So like, what are you doing that no one's making you do? Because I know like I don't know exactly 100% our age range. I don't know who exactly is going to be interested in watching this, but 12 to 22 age range, like a lot of y'all are living with your parents and stuff and going to school. It's like, what are you doing outside of that no one's making you do? Like every morning I go and I work out at 6 o'clock in the morning, and no one's making me do that, but I'm doing it so I can be physically strong and capable to protect other people, and so I can have a physical capable body to play with my kids one day when I have them, attract a wife, all those things.
Yeah.
That's another attribute of a godly man, is an attractive wife.
In his eyes.
In his eyes, yes.
I'm working on my get naked body, as some pastors have said it.
No, but that's a great point you raised, man. And it's it's not being fake, right? Like nobody, like you're saying, nobody's making you do those things, but the intention behind those things is important as well, because someone could easily be doing things that no one's making them do for the wrong intentions, right? Like for selfish reasons, for prideful reasons. And there's nothing wrong with bettering yourself, but like, why are you bettering yourself, right? And like you're saying, you're doing it for your future family. You're doing it because it helps you in discipline and all those other areas. So like, why are you making yourself do all these things that no one is making you do? And it's just keeping yourself in check, right? Like checking off that list. And I heard it said once, and it's so true, that when you get better at discipline in one area, that will carry over into another area.
That's true.
And that's very true with the physical side of life. We all know when we're working out and we get really into a good routine with working out, that discipline is going to carry over into another area. So it's just keeping yourself in.
One area that I've seen play out in my life has been, it's going to sound super like weird, but I heard somebody say one time, leave everywhere you go better off than when you got there. So I was like, how can I do that? So I thought, I'm going to start picking up a piece of trash every time I see it, anywhere I go. So literally anywhere I'll be walking through a parking lot at, like, I used to work at Berkshire's. I would be walking on my way inside to work and see a piece of litter about 20 feet from the trash can. And I'd be past the trash can. So I'd grab it and then I'd walk it back to the trash can, throw it away, and get back inside to work. And now I've literally gotten to the point to where I cannot make myself walk past a piece of trash.
Yeah.
How many times I've walked about 10 feet past the piece of trash and I'm like, oh, and I turn around and go pick up the trash, walk into a trash can, and then get on with the day. And every time I think about it, I'm just like, one day God is going to honor that with something better. So my hope and prayer in doing all of that is that it carries over and God's like, hey, here's a massive mansion because you so that's my thought towards it.
Yeah, it's
yeah. I would say
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're
All
good.
right, I'll go. Like what Austin said and what Colton said, I think that all falls underneath the idea of just taking ownership over your life, not playing the blame game, taking what you got and working with it.
Extreme ownership, Jocko Willink.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Jocko Willink is not that you say that, Colton, is someone that is that does put that message forward. I think his wording is extreme responsibility or something like that. Extreme ownership. That's what it is. Yeah. And so, but I mean, there's truth to that. Not playing the blame game, and it forces you to man up, quite literally, and basically saying, this is what I got, I'm going to use it, and I'm going to kick life in the butt with it. And I mean, I would say like all of us, like none of us are in school. Austin's real estate agent. Reagan, you're doing TikTok media, working with Patriot Academy. I'm working media as well. And Colton, you've been a roofer, you've been a bagger, you're a youth leader. You've done Colton's all over the place, and gaining all this experience and stuff. So I would just say that just taking what you got, not blaming anyone else for your circumstances, and just manning up and using the tools that you have to create more for yourself. I think that's a very manly quality and a quality of a good man.
Yeah, I think John Quincy Adams said it best. He said, duty is ours, results are God's. It's just this idea that you do your duty, you do your part, and you leave the results up to God. And he will bless you, and he will appreciate the hard work that you put in. The Bible is littered with this concept that you just do your part and you leave the rest up to God. You don't try to play God. You don't try to, create circumstances for yourself that are outside of his will. And the Benham brothers also, shout out to them as well. Their book, I think, Whatever It Takes or something like that.
Yeah.
They talk about this concept of holding your life with an open hand, right? If you're holding your life like this, God has to pry your fingers open to get access to your life. But if you're holding your life like this, he gets easy access to it and he can do whatever he wants with it. And so it's just, going through life, doing your part, working hard, going where God has called you to, and letting him handle the results, letting him handle what happens, because he's ultimately in control and we can't take that control from him.
On that topic of like discipline that you were talking about just a minute ago, I remember me and Noah were talking, and he said, when you don't have to do something and you don't want to do something is when you really see who you are. Because, there's sometimes you have to do something, you don't want to do it, but you don't really have a choice. So it's not a difficult decision to make. Yeah. And then there's sometimes where you want to do something, you don't have to, and that's like a hobby. And so that's fun. But when you don't want to do something and you don't have to, we were talking about that. It's just like, that's when you see like what you're actually willing to sacrifice and like how responsible you're willing to be for your own life. So like for me, that's like working out. I don't really enjoy working out. I enjoy not working out actually. But I know I should. It's just like when there's something you should do, but you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. Like no one's going to kick my door in and be like, work out. I mean, Colton's tried and I just ignore him. So like, it's like you have to figure out when you're going to be willing to carry the responsibility of your own discipline.
Right. Colton, you made a great point earlier about integrity being what you do when nobody else is watching. So for a young teenager, for 12, 13, 14-year-old guy who is maybe just starting high school, or I don't know what they would be in middle school at like that age or something like that.
That's junior high.
Junior high. Yeah. So what advice do you guys have for a young guy who is maybe starting to get some privacy in his life? Maybe his parents aren't watching everything he does now, and he's starting to, get into the world of social media a little deeper into areas maybe where he shouldn't go. So
don't go.
Overall with, there being at that stage of life, like for you guys, how did y'all learn how to have that mindset of nobody is watching me, but I have integrity, I've got character, I've got honor, and that's what keeps me in check? Like, how did y'all forge that mindset?
Well, whenever I was that age, I was a very sheltered Christian school kid. So I think some other ones of us in this group could probably attest to that. I think all four of us were, right?
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah.
So my parents wouldn't let me do a lot of things when I was younger. So whenever I got my first smartphone, I had no integrity built up to it because it wasn't something that I had and like resisted it. You know what I mean? It was like there was no outlet towards it. So
Like crack cocaine to a toddler.
yeah, basically. So I'm in the like straight up getting punched in the face by puberty. Someone hands me a loaded gun with so much internet filth and nastiness on it. Like that was like one of the first things I did with it, you know? So I think if you have been handed that, you need to be very careful and you need to seek advice from someone close to you, and you need to get accountability with it, because with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
So I think you need to be really careful whenever the more responsibility you have, the more accountability you need to have. So like guys who are in leadership positions of churches or big corporations will put in place a bunch of men who keep them accountable, who hold them to a higher standard. And I think that's a really important thing to learn younger in your life as well.
Mm-hmm. And that has to go with what you were saying earlier, Austin, is taking ownership for your life.
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to get accountability when you're given access to more parts of the world, then that's taking ownership over yourself. Because for anybody watching this, I don't know how old everybody is, but if you're younger, you know, you'll start to realize that the older you get, the more responsibility you get, and the more burdens come with that, the more pressure in life comes with that, and you're going to need other guys' help. Just the older you get, that's just the reality of it. Life gets harder the older you get, and you're going to need other guys to bear your burdens, be accountability partners with you. I think we're all kind of accountability partners to each other in some way or another, and that's actually strengthening. You know,
Yep.
that gives you strength over the temptations of the enemy, over the hardships of life, when you've got brothers to band together with and go to battle with. So that's, I mean, I love what y'all are saying. It's great points. Accountability, taking ownership when you get more responsibility. It's great stuff.
Yeah. Another thing on that is a man recognizes the significance of his decisions. And if you are 13 and up, right, I would argue that when you turn 13, you are officially a man. In fact, you know, back in the 1700s, there was 14-year-olds graduating seminary with what would be considered a master's degree now. And so taking that into consideration, it's important to realize that the decisions you are making, especially for the guys in high school, those decisions are going to set you on a path for the rest of your life. And when you are in tune and you recognize the significance of the decisions you make, it's your job to stay committed to the decisions that will move you forward in life, and the decisions that will pull you away from the people and the things that are going to end up being destructive. And so it's important, despite the fact that science says the frontal lobe isn't fully developed. Yes, that's true. And yes, teen guys especially have an issue with not being able to see risk, especially in the future. I'm telling you right now, you have to have foresight with the decisions you make in high school. There's a lot of regrets. Even in
You can at that age, you know, it's not like you're, you know, just dumbfounded by everything and you can't be smart and use your prefrontal cortex. You can at that age.
Right. Exactly. And you know, all four of us have experienced major regret from decisions we made in high school, and it set us on a path that has either crippled us or has, you know, forced us to have, you know, awful memories or, like I said before, regrets. And you're able to not live that way if you really understand that if you commit to being a man, commit to being a good man, you're able to have a much easier life than a lot of other guys that were there before you. And so I just think it's super important that you heed our advice. If you're in high school, you know, be a good man, stay committed to the good.
Did you guys ever have like a moment where you made that commitment to yourself that, you know, I'm no longer going to be a boy. I'm going to be a man, and I'm going to start this journey towards manhood. Did y'all ever have like a defining moment you remember, or did it just kind of gradually happen over time?
I'd say for me, it was sports in high school, because there were a lot of chances, you know, I could have started a fight, or I could have said something, or even because you're playing sports, you know, you're getting the ladies, there are decisions that you can make there.
You were getting all the ladies,
there's
man.
a lot of room for
you were no, I played sports and I didn't get the ladies, so like don't lie.
That's because you were a swimmer, Austin.
Yeah, Austin,
Coming
you
in the
want to fight,
sport,
bro?
all right?
You swam. Only Michael Phelps is the only swimmer that gets ladies, I swear.
And a lot of
It was in that moment. I was like, okay, wait, hold up. My decisions will impact this game, and they'll impact the way my teammates view me and my coaches view me. And so I'd say for me, that was probably when I realized, you know, okay, I really got to focus on being a leader for this team. So
I'd say for me, my 13th birthday, I remember my dad pulled me aside, handed me a little letter, and just kind of told me, you know what Noah was talking about, like in old times, they used to consider you a man at 13. Like that's like you turned 13, they'd been training you to be a man, and then you were a man. I remember my dad told me, he's like, your actions carry the weight of a man's decision from now on. Like whatever you do carries the weight and responsibility of a decision made by a man. He's like, you're a man from this point on. So I remember sitting there like, literally nothing's changed. Like I still don't even have a chest hair, but like, I guess I'm a man now. And so like, being told that, like, it changes the way you see things. Like I remember from then on, like just thinking anytime I was like around my mom or around my brothers or even at school, I was like, there's certain things like I have to grow up. Like I'm a man, like I have to react and respond like a man. And so like, I think that's when it happened for me. And like, there's definitely multiple moments that like were like paradigm shifts for me. Like that wasn't like, since I was 13, I've been like, I'm a man, and like thought that way, but like that was definitely like the start of it. And so then like throughout my life, like during swimming, coaches that had pulled me aside and been like this, like, we want you to carry this responsibility or whatever. And it's like, okay, like the more responsibility that's kind of been pushed on me has kind of helped forge me in manhood.
Yeah. I kind of had a moment like that too when I was 13. My dad, he did this little, what do you call it, rite of passage kind of thing when I was 13, sent me on a little scavenger hunt on our property out here. And I had a little like thing in the woods I had to go find or whatever. And then after I found that, came back, and it was it was a toolbox of a bunch of tools, and around each tool was wrapped a note with like a symbolic message of the tool or something. And then along the journey, he had my older brother and some uncles placed in various locations, and I would stop with them, and then they would give me a message and then send me on my way. And so it was really cool, and I'm really glad that he did that. And I don't know if y'all plan on doing something like that with your sons, but I highly recommend it. I plan on doing something like that, and I'm actually going to do here's a book recommendation for anybody listening. Go read "Play the Man" by Mark Batterson. In that book, he explains what he did with his sons. He did a year of discipleship. So it was a whole year of a rite of passage from 12 to 13. They read like 12 books of his selection. They trained for a physical feat. They did a spiritual challenge throughout the whole year. And I plan on doing that with my sons. And I think as you're growing up and you're getting older, if you don't have a father that is into that kind of stuff or is doing that, then challenge yourself and get with some of your friends and do something like that. You know, do your research, read good books, and I'll link some books down in the description below on this, but just, you got to be able to do the research as well. You don't expect to be watching or listening to this podcast and then just know everything you need to do to be a man, right? Like I said, we're still learning it along this journey as well. So you've got to be willing to go read good books, listen to good podcasts continually. This is a lifelong journey of learning and growing and getting better.
Yeah, that's good.
I read to become a man is Wild at Heart. I have it.
Yes. Yeah, I'll link that book down below too. Wild at Heart. What's the guy's name that wrote that one?
John Eldridge.
John Eldridge. Yes, that is a phenomenal book.
I think I've read that book once a year, every year since I was like 11.
That's awesome.
I bought the audiobook today, this morning, and I'm already on chapter like 6. I've just been listening to it all day. Such a good book.
Have you guys read? Have y'all read Do Hard Things?
Yeah.
That's a good book.
That one was written by a bunch of teenagers, actually.
It was written by two brothers.
It's pretty good. Even, I mean, I would say even now, like 20 years old, experienced a little bit more life. But that is a great book for guys in high school and everything. That goes along with what Colton was saying earlier about, doing things you don't necessarily have to do. But hey, what are what have we gone through so far? The attributes?
We talked about responsibility, discipline, integrity,
character. I would say the biggest thing we've harped on, or the two biggest things we've harped on, is what do you do when no one else is watching? How do you define your character, your integrity in those moments when you're alone and it's just you? And then understanding that the older you get, the more responsibility you get. And so getting accountability and partnering up with other guys in your life that you can help go through life with.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to link those 3 books, Do Hard Things, Play the Man and Wild at Heart, down in the description of this video. You guys have any final thoughts, wrap-ups of what we've talked about so far?
I feel like we could take a lot of the stuff we talked on and make separate episodes for all of it.
We could, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack.
There's definitely more attributes, though.
Yeah.
For later on. Yeah, definitely.
I definitely think that in order to kind of move on with this, it's important that from the get-go we do this and say, okay, this is what we believe a good man is, and then we get into the details later. And so.
Yeah, and for anybody watching, y'all put in the comments what y'all want us to cover. Any questions you guys have or topics that we can go do our research on.
Wow.
Sorry. And for anybody watching this, y'all put in the comments what y'all want us to cover in future episodes. Questions you guys have, things y'all want us to do research on or just give our opinions on. So we would love to hear suggestions for future episodes.
Don't ask in the comments why Austin's so ugly. He's just going that way, okay?
I literally couldn't hear anything you said.
I couldn't really understand that either, but I'm sure it was funny.
I'm sure it was funny.
Why Austin's so ugly. He was just born that way.
Oh, don't ask. Okay, yeah.
Oh.
All right, guys. Well, thank y'all for your time and everybody for watching. Thank y'all for watching. I'm really excited about doing this series, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, not only for the people watching, but for us as well. I really enjoy talking with you guys, and this is a whole nother episode, but iron sharpening iron, getting around good guys and having them sharpen you. So, and I experienced that with you guys, and I'm hoping that's what this series can be for any young guys watching. So with that, let's close in prayer. Noah, if you would close us out this episode in prayer, and then we'll finish up here.
Lord, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you that you have provided for us platforms that we can speak truth and that we can help other young men. Lord, you've given us a responsibility as a man to be a good one, to be a good husband, a good father, a good brother, and a good friend. And so, Lord, we just pray that this podcast touches the heart of anyone who listens, that you would send the right people to us, that you would give us wisdom and give us discernment in what to say and what to do throughout future episodes. We dedicate this podcast to you, and we do it all for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, amen. All right, guys, remember, good men create good times. Good times create bad men. Bad men create bad times, and bad times create good men. which one, I butchered that, but which one are you going to be? Are you going to be the good man or the bad man? All right. So think about that throughout this week, and we will see you guys in the next one.